Today on the BSP, we'll be discussing Joe Rogan's podcast becoming a Spotify exclusive, John Krasinski's Some Good News being put behind the paywall because good news is only for the rich, and a whole lot more, so go ahead and stick around. It is official, Joe Rogan's podcast is going to become a Spotify exclusive. Up until now, the JRE, the Joe Rogan Experience, has not been available on Spotify, but starting September 1st, it will appear on Spotify as both audio and video. Then at a later date, it will become exclusive to Spotify, where if you want to listen to or watch the entire show, you will have to go to Spotify to do so. Now, apparently, there will still be some content on YouTube in the form of clips. They have been doing this for years, and it has been very successful for them. I am a little bit concerned on whether or not they are going to change how they generate those clips, though. If they continue to generate the clips as they do right now, I think this will be great. There will be no issues whatsoever. It will still get a bunch of clicks, they'll make a bunch of money, and new people will find the show. But if they change it to more of a teaser clip idea, I think they will run into issues and get a lot of pushback, where if they don't include the full context of the clip, and right before somebody says something great in the clip, they say, find the entire clip on Spotify. I think then it will get a lot of pushback because it's no longer about providing value to the viewer. It is more about driving traffic to Spotify. So depending on how they approach the clips in the future, I think that could be successful, i.e. meaning they continue to do it as they are doing it right now, or it could be a huge train wreck, fire, car crash, in that they turn it into a marketing scheme for Spotify. Now, being that Joe Rogan is such a huge force in the podcast industry, there has been a lot of discussion about this over the last week, and there has been some speculation that this is Joe Rogan sticking up his middle finger to Google and YouTube because he has had issues with censorship and demonetization and being deranked. I liked that idea. I thought that was really a cool thought, that Joe Rogan would have this punk mentality where he would say, I don't need to put up with this. I'm going to go somewhere else where I won't have a corporate entity, a board of directors with their foot on my throat. I can do whatever the hell I want. Apparently, that's not the case, though. I was watching the Timcast IRL show, and he actually got a call from Joe, and Joe clarified that it's not him sticking a middle finger to YouTube. It's not about censorship. It was just a really good deal. I believe the figure is, it was a $100 million contract, something like that, and money talks, and there was a lot of talking going on. $100 million. That's so much money. That is so much money. But to add a little bit more context to this and put that idea of demonetization being the motivating factor to bed, Joe Rogan called YouTube or Google directly and spoke to them when Alex Jones was going to be on his show. The reason that's important is Alex Jones has been banned everywhere because Alex Jones is evil and dangerous. He screams like a crazy person. He drives people insane and makes people do violent things, whatever the justification was. So you would expect Google to say, you can't monetize that. It was the exact opposite. Google said, yeah, okay, that's fine. Yeah, we'll monetize that. No big deal. So it appears that YouTube only publicly appears to want to demonetize the discussion of Alex Jones or even Alex Jones himself. And then behind the scenes, they say, sure, money, cool. They don't really care. So I don't think that censorship or demonetization was really a motivating factor for Joe Rogan to move from YouTube to become a Spotify exclusive. But then we have the big question, is this move going to be good for Joe Rogan? I personally don't think so. The reason being, currently, whenever anybody opens up a podcatcher and they're not subscribed to anything, that podcatcher will recommend them some shows to subscribe to and listen to. Being that the Joe Rogan Experience is the number one podcast, or one of the number one podcasts, one of the top podcasts, he is going to be recommended in pretty much every single podcatcher as soon as you open it. But now, when Joe actually moves over to Spotify and becomes officially exclusive, when somebody opens up Overcast or Podcast Addict or Apple Podcasts, who is going to be the first recommended show? It is no longer going to be Joe Rogan. It is going to be some other top podcast. Now Joe's show is only going to be recommended in Spotify, so it severely limits the potential for new listeners coming in outside of the Spotify ecosystem, which in my opinion is a really bad move if you want continued growth across a large swath of people. If you only want people who use Spotify, cool. I guess that is very effective. But if you want your show to appear everywhere and have more listeners, more potential listeners, this seems like a really bad move. I will admit that, of course, Joe Rogan has some super fans, and there will inevitably be people who go over, sign up for Spotify, download the app, and start using it for listening to podcasts and music because they want to listen to Joe Rogan. But the majority of people really like convenience and they like routine. Most podcast listeners already have the podcatcher that they enjoy, and they are not going to want to go over, download Spotify, and listen to Joe Rogan there, and then jump back over to their regular podcatcher for everybody else. They want all of their podcasts in one area. So I think a lot of the listeners that currently listen to Joe Rogan are just going to think that his show stopped. They are not going to care because they're not going to go download Spotify to listen to him. But none of this really matters because Joe Rogan is already extremely wealthy, he's extremely successful, so who cares if a move is going to hurt him for maybe 5 years until his contract runs up and he can get back on every podcatcher and put the full show on YouTube? It doesn't matter. What really matters, the real reason we're talking about this, is how does this affect you as a content creator and a podcaster? What this move tells us as creators is that Spotify is willing to get into the video podcast market, which is actually kind of a surprise to me, because up until now, I have only thought of Spotify as an audio platform. I never once thought, I want video content, I'm going to go to Spotify. Never once crossed my mind. So Spotify is going through a shift right now. And to clarify something, I don't know if Spotify is going to open up video podcasting for every show that wants it, or if this will be an exclusive feature just for the top podcasts out there. I'm not sure what the accessibility of this feature will be, but it shows us that they do have the capability and the willingness to roll out video podcasts. One thing that I want to know that I have not seen many people talking about is who is hosting the video. Is Spotify actually hosting the video on their servers, they're covering the bandwidth and everything like YouTube does? Or is this just a traditional video podcast where Joe is going to have to host the video, and then when somebody wants to watch it, he will pay for the hosting space and the bandwidth to cover that? What does this look like? I am not sure, but I think it would be in Spotify's best interest to get creators to want to join in if it's not just a standard video podcast where you as the podcaster host it, pay for the bandwidth, all of that, and rather they host the video, they cover the bandwidth, and they put their ads on it. I think that's how this will succeed. If they have people pay for all the video bandwidth, nobody will want to do it unless they are making millions upon millions upon millions of dollars, because that will get extremely expensive for them very quickly. But we will have to wait and see what Spotify does with the hosting of the video, the distribution of the video, and who has access to this service and this feature. But as a whole, I think this competition for video is good, but Spotify is going to have to do something very, very special to compete with YouTube, because currently, YouTube is not only free, but YouTube has the audience for video. And not only is the audience on YouTube, but YouTube does what they can to put your video in front of people who may want to watch it. So right off the bat, YouTube has a huge leg up over Spotify, unless Spotify has been working on some kind of video recommendation algorithm, which they may have been because they have the music recommendation algorithm. They might be able to just tinker with it a little bit and get it to work really well for video. I suppose if they don't have a video recommendation algorithm, they would automatically have better optics. The reason being, YouTube recommends your videos to people. That is somewhat expected from YouTube. So if your videos get deranked on YouTube, now YouTube is the villain. But on Spotify, if they don't have that video recommendation algorithm, It will be much more difficult for you as a creator to grow. But now, if you don't succeed, if people don't watch your video podcast, it's not Spotify's fault. They didn't de-rank you. You're just bad at your job. You just didn't do enough promotion. You didn't do enough. It's your fault, not Spotify's. But on YouTube, there's this expectation that YouTube will promote your content. So if YouTube doesn't promote your content, they're the bad guy. And I think that's all I have to say about it. It will be very interesting to see how this rolls out, how successful it is. If Spotify determines, hey, this was really good for us, let's bring on more video podcasts, or if they just open it up for everybody to upload their video shows to their platform. We'll have to wait and see. Will be very fun to watch. Next, we have the news that John Krasinski's Some Good News is going behind the paywall. Oh my God! At the start of this whole quarantine thing, John Krasinski started a show titled Some Good News, and it was hosted on YouTube. And instead of talking about all the quarantine and virus news, he just focused on stuff that was positive and uplifting and fun. Well, it was announced that this is going behind the paywall and it will now be on CBS All Access. So it appears that Good News is only for the wealthy and those who have a disposable $6 every single month. How wonderful is that? For the rest of us who don't want to pay that, get in line, get miserable. Watch all the nonsense that is thrown at you on the mainstream media because that's free. It's terrible. I am kidding, of course. Good for John Krasinski for making a show that got enough buzz that a network wanted to pay to acquire the rights and put it on their network. That is no easy feat. That is amazing that you were able to do that. But it really does kind of seem like, hey, you like good news, you like feeling good, you like not being depressed and miserable and anxious all the time. If you want that, pay up. I was kind of kidding, but kind of serious. It does seem like that. Pay up if you want some good news. If you don't want good news, or if you don't have the money, you will have to suffer with all the bad news that we shove down your effing throat. Here's a barrage of stuff that will create anxiety. Enjoy it. Enjoy it, you poor person. In all seriousness, good luck to John and his team and to CBS All Access. Good luck acquiring enough shows that are of high enough quality to convince people to sign up for your service. I'm sure it's going to go over well. And one last thought on this story. I think this exact situation is why YouTubers aren't too keen on the idea of celebrities coming onto the platform and creating content, because it seems very clear that the celebrities do not care about the platform or the culture around YouTube. They just seem to view it as a stepping stone. Create content on YouTube, benefit hugely from the YouTube algorithm because the higher ups at YouTube love celebrities, so prioritize them in search results and prioritize them in the algorithm. Get a huge following and then sell it off and put it behind a paywall or use it for whatever you can to bolster your reputation in Hollywood. It's less about, I like YouTube, I want to create on YouTube, and more about, what can YouTube do for me? And that leaves a very bad taste in my mouth. And it's why I don't care that a lot of celebrities use YouTube. I'm not enamored, oh, look, a celebrity on YouTube. Who cares? The one celebrity that seems to have done it right, at least in my opinion, is Jack Black. He started a YouTube channel maybe 2 years ago with his kid. He has been creating content consistently, and he seems to understand the culture, the memes, and he has a blast with it. He fits right in the YouTube ecosystem, in the platform. And yes, he does use it to promote his movies, but he doesn't seem to be using it as a stepping stone. It doesn't seem to be, what can YouTube do for me? It's, what can I do that's fun that I want to share with people? And this whole Some Good News growing on YouTube because it got a big push from the algorithm and then moving behind a paywall just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Maybe I'm a curmudgeon. I don't know. Probably. Let me know what you think. That is it for the news. That is it for the news. All the good news and all the bad news and all the freaking out news. Let's talk about what I've been testing. You have been listening to it. I am speaking into a new microphone week. I am speaking into the Mojave MA-201 Fet. I think it's a pretty good sounding microphone. It has some weight to it. The low end is very robust on this thing. And I recently decided that I was going to try to use the microphones that I review a little bit more. So I have recorded 2 songs with this microphone, and I have put them on the Bandrew Plays YouTube channel. You could just go to youtube.com/Bandrew Plays. The last 2 uploads made with the Mojave MA-201 Fet. Let me know what you think of it. I think it sounds pretty cool. Pretty good. Let's jump to what you had to say. And there were a lot of comments regarding the OBS discussions over the last couple of weeks and the issue where when you sum down to mono, you end up with a level that is 6 decibels quieter and you peak at -6 decibels now. I went ahead and posted a video to Twitter actually right after I published last week's podcast, and I want to include that because I explain my theory on why that is. So let's go back to the past Twitter video right now. My theory is that OBS has a -6 decibel pan law compensation. So if you had the exact same audio source on a mixer coming out of the left and the right hand channel, and then you use that down mix to mono button on OBS, your signal would increase by 6 decibels. And if you had been setting your level so you were at 0 dB, now you would be clipping by 6 decibels. So in order to avoid that, when you down mix to mono, OBS automatically decreases the overall level by -6 dB. Now, when I was doing that demonstration and when most people are using that down mix to mono button, they just have a single microphone input, so they are not doubling up the audio source. So they are going to be losing 6 decibels of level to this pan law compensation without any way to say, OBS, I don't want you to do this other than adding a gain filter and cranking it up by 6 dB. So I think that OBS needs to roll out some kind of mono microphone channel as opposed to defaulting to stereo. Because as a stereo track, a lot of people aren't using stereo microphones. They need that mono input source. That's my take on it. Let me know what you think, because I may be way off base here, but that makes sense in my head. It just clicked after I posted that tweet and I wanted to share it. Okay, bye. So there you have it. That is my theory on why you clip at -6 dB once you have summed down to mono. It has to do with the pan law compensation. And I believe some folks in the comments said exactly that, but to be clear, I said it first. I said it first. I am the smartest man in the world, okay? Okay, I'm the smart one. Don't bully me. Don't bully me, please. I don't know why I went there. Anyways, I have one comment that I want to address from last week, and that comes from Beige Boy. And he says, cancel culture, lol. Tell that to Ethan. He's all about that. Beige Boy, thank you very much for that comment. I was not going to talk about this, but you gave me an excuse to, so I am going to. For those of you who are not in too deep into internet culture, Ethan is the host of the H3H3 podcast and H3H3 Productions. This last week, he got into some drama with another YouTuber, and some words were thrown and some things were said and done that raised some red flags. So over the last week, Ethan put out a video on another YouTuber called Drama Alert, the host being somebody named Keemstar, pointing out what a bad guy he is. He is a real bad guy, and I don't disagree. I do think that Keemstar seems like a complete jerk. There's no denying that. That's kind of his persona. If that's the type of content that you make, go for it. I don't think it's the most interesting or valuable, so I don't really enjoy it that much. In 2015, 2016, I found it really entertaining. Now it's just, it seems petty and dumb to me to make this type of video. The issue that I have is not with the type of content that it is, even though I don't enjoy it. My issue is the way that Ethan approached it. What I mean by that is Ethan didn't make a video simply saying, look what a jerk Keemstar is. He's a jerk. Here is why he's a jerk. You shouldn't watch him. You shouldn't support a jerk. He did essentially say that, but he also included a lot of digs at one of Keemstar's sponsors. And what that led to is a lot of Ethan's fans and followers and listeners going and emailing Keemstar sponsors to the point where his sponsor dropped Keemstar, or Keemstar was dropped from the sponsor. I don't know what the proper wording is, but now Keemstar no longer has that sponsor. And the issue that I have with this approach to criticizing someone where you go after their sponsors is it opens up the floodgates for destroying someone's livelihood just because you don't like them, or you don't agree with their ideas, or you don't think they're a likable person, or that they're a bully. I don't like that, because I have to ask the question now, who is the arbiter of what is moral and good and proper to do? Who is the moral authority in all of this? And to that point, because we saw Ethan open up these floodgates and his audience went after Keemstar's sponsor to the point where they dropped Keemstar, Keemstar's fans and followers went after Ethan's sponsors to the point where Ethan lost some sponsors. You can see how dangerous and murky this can get. It just seems like a really bad road to go down, because I don't think any of us should harbor this delusion that these sponsors are pulling their money because they don't want to appear next to certain content. They are not doing it out of some objection to the content within the videos their ads are on. They are pulling it because they don't want to deal with the headache of an angry mob at the front of their gates. They don't want to deal with that. It is not some moral win where you can say, oh, look, now this sponsor doesn't support when people say this. They most likely could not care less. They are just doing it to get you off their case. That is the entire reason, in my opinion, that these sponsors are pulling their dollars. It is not a moral win here. Therefore, if you don't like someone and you get a large enough group of people, you could essentially get ads pulled from anyone. Even if they don't do anything bad, you can say, I don't like this person. Let's get an angry mob together and create an email campaign and a tweeting campaign to their sponsors to get their ads pulled. Because if there's enough outrage, if there's enough thought and enough concern from that company, that there is a large group who will no longer patronize them because they have a sponsor on Podcastage, they're going to pull their ads. That's the bottom line. It has nothing to do with morals, what's right, what's good, what's wrong, what's evil. It has nothing to do with that. And this is a perfect demonstration of that. Both of them lost sponsors, not because any of them were inherently in the wrong, although I think both of them were. They lost sponsors because they both have large enough followings to create fear in the sponsors. And to summarize, I simply don't think that trying to get ads pulled is an appropriate approach to having a disagreement or an argument with someone, because no one person is an absolute authority on what's right and wrong and what deserves to make money. No individual is the arbiter of what's moral and good. I just don't think it's the proper road to go down. That's all I'll say on it. Thank you very much, Beige Boy, for that comment. Now we are jumping to what you had to say. No, that's what we just did. Now we're going to jump to my favorite part of the show. I can't even remember what it's called. The Ask Bandrew segment. Alrighty, welcome to the Ask Bandrew segment. You can send in questions if you've got them. All you need to do is go to askbandrew.com. You can send in text-based questions, my least favorite, although I still do appreciate them, don't get me wrong. You can send in video, which is amazing to get, and you can send in audio. And you can do that using the SpeakPipe app, or you can record a WAV file and send it over email. You can do anything to get that audio and video and email to me. I appreciate it. Let's jump to the first submission, and this is a video submission. Take it away, Aaron from the Philippines.
Hello, Bandrew, and greetings from the Philippines. My name is Aaron, and you've inspired me to upgrade from my cheap headset mic into a BM-800 condenser microphone, which I am speaking into right now. Anywho, I want to get your opinion as to how this microphone sounds with my voice. I've processed it with custom VST plugins I found for OBS. My chain is noise suppression, compression, EQ, and finally, a hard limiter. I'm running a gaming channel on YouTube, and I'm hoping this sounds high quality enough for it. I know all too well that I have background noise artifacts that pop up whenever I speak, but I feel like I can get away with that by turning up my game volume high enough to the point where the artifacts can't be heard anymore, but my voice still can. What you're hearing right now is how my videos sound regularly with my mixing. So can I get some feedback on this? And thank you so much once again, wishing you all the best.
Aaron from the Philippines, thank you very much for sending in that video. I really do appreciate it. And I must say, all things considered, you sound excellent. As you point out, there is a little bit of hiss and background noise when you do speak because your gate opens up. But as a whole, with a $20 microphone, I think you sound pretty dang good. And I think you are a perfect example, a shining star in the sea of examples, that you don't need expensive gear to sound good. All you need to get good sound is a little bit of research and time and playing around with the gear that you have, understanding it, and playing around with settings to get the best quality that you can. Aaron is a perfect example. That is a BM-800, a microphone that does not sound amazing by any stretch of the imagination, but he has made sound better than a lot of people sound with much more expensive setups. So let this be a lesson to you. Say no to drugs. Sorry, that's a quote from Sleepaway Camp 2, I think. Sorry. Let this be a lesson, though. You can get great sound with affordable gear. Aaron, very well done. I am proud of you, sir. Keep up the great work. Good luck on the YouTube channel. Next, we have an email from Isaac, and he says, "Hey, Bandrew, they say not to record vocals with open back headphones because the mic may pick up bleed, though I find I sing better with them on. Would this be a problem even on a low sensitivity mic like the SM7B? When I use closed back headphones, I always have to take one earmuff off to hear my voice naturally, even when direct monitoring." Isaac, thank you very much for the email and the question. And it really depends on how loud you monitor your audio. Chris Curran runs the Podcast Engineering Show, and he uses the Sennheiser HD650s to monitor while he's recording. The reason he is able to do that is he monitors his voice and his guest's voice pretty darn quiet, so there's not going to be any bleed. But with open back headphones, you don't just have to worry about bleed, you also have to worry about feedback. And if you do monitor really loudly, even with an SM7B, you do risk getting bleed from the headphones, what you're monitoring or what you're listening to, as well as getting feedback. And that can be deafening, where if the headphones are too loud, the microphone will pick it up. You're monitoring that microphone so it goes back through the headphones and it creates this feedback loop, and it is a high-pitched whine. It is terrible. I will try to demonstrate it with the headphones I have right now by taking them off and putting them right up to the microphone. I apologize ahead of time. I may attenuate this to keep it from deafening everybody. Yikes! That is not fun to listen to, but you could expect that if you have open backs and you monitor extremely loudly. It depends on the level that you monitor at, and even with an SM7B, you do risk picking up bleed and feedback if you listen to your audio and your direct monitoring too loud. I hope that helps. Best of luck to you, Isaac. Hope you can get it to work for you. Next, we got an audio submission, so go ahead and take it away.
Well, hello there, Bandrew. I am Jorge, I am from Spain, and I've been listening to you for like 2 or 3 months. I'm really happy I found your channel. And first of all, I hope you're well, and everybody you know is well, with all this stuff that's been going on. And yeah, I have a question because I have kind of a problem. You see, I've been recording podcasts for a company, for the last 6 months. And because we've always done them in a recorded format, I've just been treating them like a field recording, because that's what I normally do. I don't really do live audio. So yeah, I've just gone there with my Zoom F4. I've taken the clean dialogue and I've been doing all the post-processing in Pro Tools later. So now, English is hard, man. Well, now my contractor has called me and has told me that because of time constraints, because of this COVID stuff that's been going on, we've been in quarantine 2 months, he's told me that we are going to start doing the podcast live. So yeah, I have a Focusrite 686, I have a pair of Audio-Technica 80-2035s, you are listening to one right now. So I have the equipment, but the problem is I don't know if I can rely on the streaming software they are going to use. I don't even know which software they are going to use, if it's OBS, if it's XSplit or whatever. I don't know if I can rely on the post-processing of the audio of that software. Should I bite the bullet and buy a mixer? Or should I just try to post-process the audio in software? Thank you so much. Love the content. Cheers.
Jorge, thank you very much for sending that in. I appreciate you doing that. You sound wonderful. Your audio, crystal clear. Appreciate you. If you're live streaming and you are in the same room with the host and the guest, and you will not be needing individual tracks, yes, a mixer could be a decent solution, but you may be a little bit limited on the control over the sound. On most affordable mixers, all you get is a simple 3-band EQ and maybe a 1-dial compressor where you can't really dial it in. You don't have other effects like de-essing or noise gates or expanders or anything. So in this case, as opposed to just going out and buying a mixer, because you do already have an audio interface, I think one route you could go is picking up a couple of DBX 286S's. You would have one of those for each of the AT2035s. That would give you the gain. It has a very minimal EQ, a low frequency detail and a high frequency detail. You have a compressor, a noise gate, a de-esser, and that gives you pretty much all the vocal processing that you might need to produce a good sounding podcast. It gives you a lot more control than a basic mixer with a 3-band EQ. But if you do want a mixer that has a lot of control, it is a little bit expensive, but the Rodecaster Pro can do all of that while simultaneously recording multi-tracks. So you would be able to mix each of the microphones in real time. You can add real-time processing, compressors, noise gate, de-essers, EQ kind of a little bit, and get a lot better sound than just with a basic mixer. But again, that's $600. So you'll have to determine what the budget for the gear is and determine which of those routes you want to go down. If I had to pick, I would probably go with the Rodecaster just for simplicity's sake, but at the same time, the DBX is really a great option, and that would be $200 cheaper probably. So that's my advice. I hope that helps, and best of luck with the show going forward, and I hope you and your loved ones are all doing well and staying safe over there. Hope to hear from you again very soon. Thank you very much, Jorge. And lastly, we have one last email question, and it comes from Nicolas. And he says, "Hi, Bandrew. I have a HyperX Quadcast USB mic, and I tried to add some compression and EQ with a VoiceMeeter Banana." Blah, blah, blah. Sorry, I was vomiting. I have these problems. 1, I have almost 1 second of delay, and I want to get rid of that. Is it possible? And 2, when I say some words, the breaks, I can hear a sound breaking in the E when I say okay, for example. Do you know why? If you don't like VoiceMeeter Banana, what software do you recommend? I love your show. Nicolas, thank you very, very much for the email and the question. I am not a fan of VoiceMeeter at all. I have only used it once. It was unintuitive, difficult to use, and a pain in the butt. However, it's free. You can't argue with that. It is absolutely free, and that is fine. If you're recording something in a software like OBS, then you could potentially add a 1-second time delay to the video to get the audio and the video synced up. If you are just having the issue with the latency in monitoring, there's nothing you're able to really do about that. There's nothing you can really do to remove that latency short of adjusting the buffer size in your DAW. And I don't know if VoiceMeeter Banana allows you to adjust the buffer size of your interface and all of that. The buffer size allows you to get lower latency or better quality. And I don't know if VoiceMeeter Banana allows you to adjust the buffer size. That would be one way to decrease the latency, but it won't get rid of it. That's one huge drawback to running an audio signal through an interface into your computer, processing it, and then sending it back out. That's a lot of stuff to do, and it takes time. That's why there is latency, because it takes a bit of time. And depending on the software optimization and the processing you're adding, that will affect how much latency there is. So unfortunately, I don't know of any way to remove the latency that you're getting. As far as alternatives, you're on Windows. I'm really not certain about any real-time processing plugins available. What you could do, again, if you are using something like OBS, you could use any VST plugins using that filter option that I demonstrated in last week's episode or 2 weeks ago. I walked through how to do that, and I posted it on my Twitter as well. And I show you how to add filters. You can add any VST filters or plugins that you want. Again, you will have latency. You won't be able to monitor it in real time, but you will have that processing on the audio that's going to your OBS file or stream or whatever. As far as the E breaking, to me, the only thing that would make sense is your clipping. So I would either decrease the gain on the USB microphone so you are not clipping the analog to digital converters, meaning you are not exceeding 0 decibels or even getting close. Watch 2 weeks ago, BSP episode 214. I talk about how to set your gain so you're not clipping in OBS. That would apply here as well. You can add the filtering and boost the gain in VoiceMeeter Banana once it's in there. But you need to make sure that the microphone is not exceeding 0 decibels when it's going into your computer. And then you also need to make sure that you're not boosting the audio in VoiceMeeter to the point where you're exceeding 0 dB as well. And I'm guessing that will solve the issue with the E's breaking. I hope that helped. Thank you very much for sending that in, Nicolas. I appreciate you. I appreciate everybody who sent those in. Amazing, amazing questions, videos, audio. You're just lovely. You're amazing. I have the best people who listen to this. I have one announcement. That would be May 29th. I am going to be on the live stream for The Cure with Heather Welch. Woo! Oh, yeah, Heather! It's a live stream to raise money to stop cancer, because F cancer. Cancer can suck it. Cancer can suck it big time. So if you want to contribute to stopping cancer and cancer research, check it out, livestreamforthecure.com. And they should have a schedule up, and you can come by and hang out with Heather and myself. It's going to be a blast. That is it for this week. Thank you so much for coming by. Thank you so much for listening. You are an absolute rock star. I love you. I really do. I love you so much. You're the best. Oh my God. Thank you so much. I will talk to you. I hope you have an amazing... I'm lost. I lost my train of thought. I hope you have an amazing Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Next Sunday, I will talk with you. I hope you have an amazing week. If you're in the U.S., happy Memorial Day. Thank you to all the veterans. You're legends. I appreciate you beyond measure. Talk to you next week. Bye.
This has been a Geeks Rising production. For more information, check out geeksrising.com. Pizza!